Good day, everybody. How's it going out there? Well, the Ursa Majors has decided has announced its awards. Had decided it was eventually going to announce the awards, but it was done at Furry Week in Atlanta, just this last, just this 2 weekends ago, and so they announced the winners, and the winners are now posted in multiple locations. Infernation has launched it, Flare has it, and it's on, of course, ursamajor.com if you want to see the results for yourself. And here's the article for Flare that was edited by Dronin. And so there you can see the full things. They have full statistics available for each of these, which I'll probably could take a look at those. And we'll probably read these with those. But basically we have the winners of the motion picture, the dramatic shorts works, dramatic series, and there weren't too many surprises this year, except for maybe in the written side of things. Obviously, the writing side of the series of the things has changed quite a bit in the past few years. See if I can click on full statistics. There we go. Wow, Wild Robot really blew it out, by about 100 points. So the Wild Robot won first place, Flow won second, and Hedgehog won third. Basically, the Wild Robot was a really well crafted piece. About a robot in a forest. I haven't seen any of these movies yet. I'm not a movie guy, but I did hear a lot of good things about the Wild Robot and Flow, and obviously Sonic the Hedgehog I heard a lot of good things about. I'm surprised Wallace and Gromit had a film. I didn't even hear about that. There was actually 6 this year that got nominated. That's how popular things were. Kung Fu Panda 4 getting dead last is also interesting. It kind of shows, I think, how that franchise is kind of getting less and less popular every time. Sonic is getting more and more popular with each entry at this point. Kung Fu Panda is not. I think Cross Affliction really liked Kung Fu Panda. The original was really good. Number 2 is pretty good. I didn't watch number 3. As I said, I kind of don't watch movies as much as I used to. But it's interesting that Kung Fu Panda is kind of falling out of favor. And these original IPs that are sort of art housey are sort of climbing to the top, which I don't think Cross Affliction would be too cross about. I think that I think he would agree with the setting on that. Maybe not so much with Sonic 3, but with the other two for sure. So we have dramatic short works. So Catching Up Pilot got way dead last. The winner was Bunny Overture. It was actually really close between Dungeon Flippers, the Ace of Wands, and Overture. Given how much the difference between those two, as a thing is actually quite crazy, because Bunny Overture is a very short piece of work, but it's extremely well animated. The characters have blown up, and the creator has definitely marketed those characters very well. They've even made a bunch of spoof movie posters with them, including the Naked Bun, which is after the Naked Gun, which is kind of funny. Hank Howell and I don't know what the rabbit's character's name is. I don't think they formally introduced themselves. Hank Howell has definitely formally introduced himself, but the bunny character really hasn't. He probably has a name, but I don't know it. But those definitely have the characters definitely become a big staple, even beyond when the animation was made. In fact, I would say the marketing that he's done with the timing of the marketing, I think, with the plushie campaign he did, right at the beginning of this year, I think really helped him clutch this Ursa Major win. Not that he hasn't had Ursa Major wins before, but I think that absolutely certainly helped his case in securing that thing, is that marketing of those two characters who have become pretty iconic in the animation space and the fandom. Especially, as I said, it's kind of very fan servicey. Like, there's definitely relate tension of an overtone sort of way between the two characters, which is I think most furries would find amusing. The Ace of Wands is very much a different thing. It's a very much a long form pilot thing, and it very much has a complete story arc. And it's like, it's furry. It's got, it's a minotaur character and a dragon as sort of the main characters. But the interesting, like, the whole world isn't furry. The whole world's more like fantasy setting. Because it's like kobold and a minotaur, right? Character, trying to sell a wizard a house. But got really good score. Horny got third place, which, given that one is that one's a lot more risque than bun hunting was. So it's good. I think it's interesting, and it shows sort of a dynamic, I think, where the furry fandom is sort of like going, it's fine to draw the line a little bit at the innuendo. It's fine to place some stuff with innuendo here and actually vote as a positive thing, which I think is a good thing. Speaking of innuendo in the animation, Beastars won dramatic series. But then again, mostly everything except for maybe Bluey in here would qualify for that. So Beastars, except for maybe the Amazing Digital Circus, I haven't really watched that one. Hell of a Boss got third. Has Been Hotel. Now, the interesting thing about Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, it's like it's made by a person who definitely got their name out there in the fandom, so to speak. Like, I don't know if I would call Has Been Hotel like furry in that sense, right? It's angels and demons, and those angels and demons can sometimes take the form of animals. And obviously, Hell of a Boss has Luna as sort of the furry bait character, the werewolf character. But for the most part, it's like it's angels and demons. It happens to be animated and done by Vizipop, who basically like furry animated music videos back in the day, and like still one of the Gonna Die Young is very much a staple and a huge memory kind of a thing. So it's interesting where that is sort of, I think, where the lines get blurred here with what is anthropomorphic and what furries will vote on. I think very much, obviously, Beastars is as furriest you can get, which I think is why it gets so much things. And it's very much an adult story with animal characters. So very much like, it fits right in that niche, almost if it was made for the fandom. And I think that it's like, as soon as it originally came out, it was like saying, this series is sort of furry bait. Now, Beastars is almost up, I think. I don't know. I gotta have to look it up a little bit more because I'm a little out of the loop a little bit on some of it. But I think its final season was either last year or it's this year. But I know the final season is coming up, so Beastars will eventually haul off. I don't know how long Hell of a Boss or Has Been is going to be running, but I'm sure Vizzy has got a lot of stories lined up for that. So who knows? Bluey obviously got second. I'm surprised. I thought that series was done, but I guess it's still going. And we'll see how much where that series has got. I think Bluey's always going to kind of be up there if it's in there. Novel. So this was the interesting one. Now, this is a tight race. Looking at it a little bit more now that I got the numbers in front of me. The novel is very much a tight race. The spread between the lowest and the largest is very much not huge, but it's like 151 so the difference is like 50 between the top thing and the bottom thing. So there's definitely a smaller audience that is definitely a lot more spread out than like Dramatic Series has like a lot of voters and things like that. Even more voters than the Dramatic Short Works. And Movie obviously brings in a lot of voters. So like the difference between the number of voters on people reading novels is obviously going to be a lot lower because obviously there's a lot less readers than watchers. But an interesting thing that was brought up about this is that Greg, here, and I can go back here for a moment. Oops. I didn't know I could do that. That's actually pretty cool. Oops. But Greg here, Greg Luderman, Executioner's Gambit, you know, I was noted by an average furry there that by one of the people who watch this on a regular basis that they won last year and now all of a sudden they're at the bottom. And something else I noticed is Rick Griffin is not too far behind in being behind. Chain Unbroken getting second to last place. These two names here, for old school furries, like have been in the content creation space for a good bit of time. And to see these, seasoned veterans, these seasoned content creators, these seasoned writers kind of falling down a little bit to like names I don't recognize, but maybe I don't recognize them because, I'm not cultured enough in the fandom. Maybe they have been prolific writers in and of themselves, but they're not names that I know off the top of my head. And that's great. New and fresh blood is always what we want to see because the whole idea of these awards is to try to bring ideas and thoughts of new content creators and bringing up good quality, content created by them. So that furries can find cool things that they would maybe enjoy by like Aaron Dusk and Abraham Carlson and Utunu, if that's how you pronounce that. If it's not, I apologize. So the interesting thing, and this is something I'll note, is that 10 years ago at this point, in our, now it's being silly again, but 10 years ago, there was a request by a very prolific furry writer named, oh God, no, don't forget his name now, Kyle Gold. Kyle Gold basically won an Ursa Major every year. It's like almost up to its founding until 2015, and in 2015 he said, that's enough. I'm going to basically let myself sit aside so that other people can get, a chance to win one of these awards and have their names put out there. Because I'm already well known. I already have my art out there. I already have my written works out there. Given that Rick Griffin and Greg are at the bottom of the list now, to me, it seems that I don't know if Kyle I don't know if he's still prolifically writing. I don't know how he's been over the past few years. I'm pretty sure he's still at it. But I am starting to think that if he were still in the race, if he was back in the race, I don't necessarily know that he would win anymore because the fandom has, grown and moved on and has more content. Obviously, more individuals are starting to rise up that, are, winning over, legacy names. And that's a great thing because it means that we're, our fandom's still growing and active. Short fiction, obviously, is a category this year that is a lot different than what it used to be. Renee Carter Hall got second, and, she's been a staple name. One name, and that's not in here, is Mary Lloyd, and there's past videos that I have that go over that situation, but the final nail in the coffin was definitely people who are using AI are not allowed in the awards. And as in the previous videos had noted, Mary E. Lloyd definitely embraced the concept of AI, particularly for cover art on her works. And very much caused a lot of controversy in the fandom, and unfortunately I think fell off because of that thing. I think it was, even if she had submitted them, I don't think it would have been accepted, because it's like, if she's using AI for her cover art, who's to say if she is or is not using it for her written works, even though she's clearly a prolific writer and can do so on her own and has proven that time and time again. An unfortunate situation, but it definitely has allowed different names to show up, because she definitely took up many spaces in the short fiction category, which have now absolutely been freed up to have different names here. So the winner of that one was Monarch of Monsters by Violet Pony. Now, Violet Pony, I think, won the music one too, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So Violet Pony definitely is aware of the Ursas, I think, and definitely has a fan base that is interested in getting her to win Monarch of Monsters. Is that the same name too? Huh. Clever. That's actually interesting. I didn't realize that until just now. So the winner of short fiction is Monarch of Monsters by Violet Pony, and the winner of the music thing is Monarch of Monsters by Violet Pony, which is apparently a short fiction writing here that does this go to an actual thing you can read? I think it probably does if it's available. Where'd the thing go? It had it on the bottom there. There it goes. Okay. So it goes to her own site, which hosts it, and then this one goes to the Bandcamp, and the music one goes to the Bandcamp. So I guess I might as well go over the music thing now that we've talked about it a little bit. So this is the first time that music has been actually voted on successfully and had a successful thing. Last year's had a little kerfluffle, as it were, that prevented these from going through, and we covered that in a previous video as well. So it was between one Cassidy Civet and Clace had an argument between themselves as roommates, and they actually fell out as roommates, and their behaviors online. Clace finally had enough of Cassidy's behavior online, and Cassidy got angry at Clace and started saying things, and he started getting angry about the things she said, and then brought the Ursas into it, and basically they were working together on music, and that whole thing fell apart. So they're not on the list this year of the nominees. Whether or not that means that they didn't try to get nominated individually, I'm not sure. I don't think Clace did, because I think Clace, he ended up getting angry at the Ursas because they weren't fast enough in dealing with the issue that he was having with Cassidy. So, there's sour milk in that pot. And Cassidy, I don't think, has any, anger at the Ursas per se. I think she was upset about the fact that her songs got kicked off the list. But that being said, this year is the first year that, we actually got to see the Ursa Majors basically do that. It looks like David Wojciechowski. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I apologize. Wojciechowski? I think that's how it's pronounced. If not, feel free to put phonemes in the comments section. But basically, he had two things here. Patricia had one, and then Whispers had Sad, Drunk, and Needy as his thing. I believe that's an album. The interesting thing about the music is it could be a single or an album. At this time, it's a little generic. It's kind of I'm not a music judge, but I might dabble in it a little bit next year to see if I can take a look at some of the recommendations and give them a listen and try to see if I can point people to things, because I know last year I found a furry song that was really awesome that wasn't even on their list. It was related to somebody that was on their list, but it wasn't one that they had posted. And I really, really liked it, and it's not very listened to. So it's it's called Werewolf Boyfriend by Werewolf Boyfriend. It was actually pretty. It was very sweet and interesting. Um, but obviously there wasn't a vote last year for that. But I hope that music continues to move forward. Generary literary work, basically graphic novels and things like that. Um, is Swords and Sausages, Volume 2 by Jan. It looks like Swords and Sausages also is on this list twice. I believe. There's another like Swords and Sausages. Yeah, graphic story. So graphic story was comic books and serialized online stories. Swords and Sausages one by Jan, and then also Swords and Sausages one for general literary work. Which interestingly, I don't know what the difference between general literary work like is. I guess it's a merging of all the different kinds of things, miscellaneous as it were. It's like a mixture of all these things because it's like graphic story versus general literary work. It's like nonfiction works and serialized online stories. Like it looks like it covers a lot of these subcategories, which to me it's like if the Ursas are looking to save some money now that they do have like anthologies maybe because that's story collections, comic collections, graphic novels, nonfiction works, and serialized online stories. So if they want to do it like best serial or collection stuff and say like the collections can be of all these different categories, that might be more kind of what they're looking for. But I guess I'll have to kind of see what that is. Nonfiction work, obviously this is my domain. I'm very kind of happy that one won. Quite honestly, that was one celebrating 85 years of conventions from Worldcon 1939 and to Anthrocon 2024. I believe it's a video of a panel presentation of the particular history of those kind of convention works. And I believe it might have been held at Anthrocon 2024, or maybe shortly after. But I'm glad that I've seen convention history in on social media. I think they do good works, and I think that Fred Patton used to cover convention stuff a lot, and I cover it a little bit, but don't obviously do full. I don't dedicate as much effort as I should. I'm sort of a master of all, or not master of all, jack of all, master of none. It's good to see a group that focuses on that, getting the credit they deserve, and I congratulate them on their victory on that. Fur and Loathing's Dog Patch thing got second. I was expecting them to get second or first. I was expecting Dog Patch's podcast thing to get that either first or second. I'm kind of glad they got second. And no shade on Dog, but the podcast very well produced. Very well produced. The thing that it didn't really go anywhere. Like it was it's obviously the journey and not the destination, and talking about the journey of them looking for this individual, this ne'er-do-well who attacked the 2014 Midwest Fur Fest convention, is an interesting story, but it concluded with didn't find the guy. Like it started with, we have some guys who we think it might be, these people that we don't that are gruffy and scruffy and nasty online, and like let's go after those guys, and let's interview those guys. And they went down, they interviewed those guys, and obviously it leads to dead ends, right? At the end of the thing they don't conclude, but they do note that it's like the statute of limitations on this particular case is basically running its course. And the idea is like, it's like, even though people have tried, like justice might not be done in this case. And ironically, in somewhat of my opinion, I'm kind of glad that the statute of limitations is running out, because if there was no statute of limitations, it would mean somebody would have died during the incident, right? If an incident happens like that and someone dies during it, then there is no statute of limitations, right? Because somebody died during it, then it's a murder investigation, right? And murders don't have a statute of limitations. But because there was only injuries and not any deaths related to that incident, there's a statute of limitations, which to me, I would rather there be a statute of limitations and, people be wary about the situation than there not be a statute of limitations and the person still not get caught. But at the end of the day, it was an interesting story and an interesting, they're very extrovert. Like, the Dogpatch is very good about getting out there and doing things with people. And that definitely shows and shines, whereas I'm a little less so. But it shows and shines in that particular thing. So I definitely think that because of its production value, it definitely deserved to be above my things, which is more impromptu and one person and rambly. And not very, the production value is pretty low. So I would agree that the production value of that definitely deserved it to be bumped above my things. And everything else was kind of like I kind of expected it to be that way. My video Dragoneer is above the one about the hacking that happened after Dragoneer's passing, because it was a story, but it was a passing one. They did get control back from for Affinity. The last one was interesting that they had a convention opening ceremonies actually get in there, because opening ceremonies happen at a lot of different conventions. So the fact that one of the conventions was able to get themselves nominated to the nonfiction works kind of shows that maybe as far as promoting other nonfiction works that are just not just random like panels that are at every convention in the world, shows that there's still work to be done as far as promoting nonfiction works in the fandom and outside the fandom, about the fandom, right? So maybe it's something that needs a little bit more focus next year for sure. Graphic story, once again, that Jan's Swords and Sausages. Got a victory on that one. Oops, no, that's not what I want at all. What the heck happened? What? No. Hold on, it's being stupid. There we go. Comic strip, Foxes in Love. I believe that one won last year, too. So, Taivo Keratin's story of the green and the blue fox has definitely captured the hearts of many folks on social media, especially since I think the thing that Toivo has done really well is capture the format of like the 4-panel like box form that really works well with social media, and also has 2 characters that have great story about a loving couple who have an intriguing opposite. Magazine, Dogpatch, Falera, Information, Gaming Weekly, Gaming Forever, and Furry Weekly. Order and who is available, who is on that's not any surprise whatsoever. It happens basically every year that way at this point. I really do hope that there's like a magazine, because magazines are kind of a dying form. I really do hope that is not true in the latest, and that like other nonfiction, magazines can kind of shine their light and get out there. Particularly like Furry Weekly, I think, has a lot of potential. Maybe if they did it monthly, and maybe if they did like covered things about like got actually in-depth things with like gave themselves time to breathe so they can like do things about fursuit making and content creation and things like that, and get some to folks who want to talk about their creativity process, their creative processes and stuff. It'd be kind of cool to see a magazine like that in my mind. But I've got mine, so I can barely keep up with the stuff I'm doing currently. Maybe when I'm retired someday, I can fully focus on doing more about content creation and all that stuff. Published illustrations. So these ones, you can obviously click on them all and take a look at them. I think that the people who I thought would win. I really liked Untitled. I like the reflection in the metal, like that perspective. But But yeah, you should take a look at those. I think it was a decent thing. I actually liked the round 8 better than the shopping simulator. Shopping simulator was definitely the least favorite for me. It was a bit too noisy and I couldn't see the characters. Though, I mean, maybe that's the quote unquote point that consumerism consumes the individual because it's a shopping center. But I don't think that's what they were going for. I'm not sure. But interestingly, web fishing one, and it's like a little game about cats fishing for fish. Um, Especially like it's a very indie, very small development team, but apparently it's a big popular game, and I haven't played it yet on my channel. Very much interesting. I did have Animal Well. It didn't make it. I think Nine Souls is on my list of voting things, and I think Another Crab's Treasure and Black Myth are on them. I think Black Myth might have gotten voted off, but a very very interesting that like the smallest of the small, like that one may be a little bit of a surprise. Like I thought Black Myth Wutong had a lot more because it was that famous story from the East, the Journey to the West, mythos, which I thought, and it's also a AAA title game, so I thought it would be a little bit more popular, but I guess web fishing won, and if it's like a social game that people like and enjoy, I mean that's great. Go on fishing. People apparently like fishing. As cats. Website for Affinity, E621, Wiki for Belfairy, Winnebags, and comments. I looked at these last two. Like, this one looks really Web 1.0. And this Fluffle one it's like, tries to detect other pictures with a fursona based on another picture. And I tested it with mine, and obviously my character doesn't have a lot of art out there. So the fact that it failed, shouldn't leave me unimpressed if it failed to find anything. But I don't think it's related to AI at all, any of these things, because obviously AI related stuff is banned. So I'm going to guess any website that uses AI for creative purposes would not be allowed on this index. Fursuit. So Fursuit, this is I don't know how many years, but like every year, like Fursuit has trouble getting things, and that might be a topic I need to cover at another time. Fursuits tend to have trouble getting people to nominate, and I think it's because, people assume it's like, well, the Fursuit, and then probably correctly assume that the Fursuit has to be basically premiere in the year that it's done. So like, what Fursuit premiered in the year 2024? Like, a lot of people don't know. Like my Fursuit is old at this point, right? My Fursuit is now, and I think this is the last category because we already covered music, so we'll go back to that. But let's actually take a look at some of the numbers here while I'm doing that. But basically, yeah, short story. Wow, that's actually a tie. So who gets it? And the fact that it had 50 votes. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I found a tangent topic to talk about before. Apparently, the score is the same for a different kind of make-believe in Monarch of Monsters. Monarch of Monsters won. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe the number one votes. They take the number one picks and then said Monarch of Monsters got more number one picks. So we're going to pick that one over the other one, right? Maybe it's the median thing. And if that's the case, then they made the right decision. But yeah, that's interesting. General artwork, literary artwork. This is also a very, very tight spread. Obviously, Sword and Sausages actually had quite a difference, but the Shapeshifter's Guide and Lorem Ipsum Throws Back at You basically got pretty close. Nonfiction work. All right, how many votes did we get? Okay, yeah, 85 years took it away pretty much. Yeah, and 175 and then 157. So between me and Dogpatch, it was pretty close. The 34 who voted won. Thank you very much. Um, a lot of people had it as their first pick, which is great. That's always a great sign. But this one had a really good spread. Like, it definitely was people's second picks and third picks if they picked mine as number one. Yeah, it definitely had a lot of voters. And then, yeah, 73, 73, 60. So, like, basically the number of voters actually kind of really ties to whether or not the person wins or not, too. Like, it's pretty close in that regard. The number of people voting on it. Graphic story, the spread is pretty wide. Sword and Sausages has 50-point lead on the second place. Comic strip, no contest. Like, Foxes in Love is about 100 ahead of Pixie and Brutus, which is the second place one. Magazine, no contest, basically 75 ahead of us. 75 ahead of Flair, I should say. Information is like right on our heels. Honestly, if I'm just being perfectly honest, I think Information probably deserved second place this year. I did not do great with maintaining Flair this year, or in 2024, and I would include this year in that regard. Published illustration, pretty widespread. Wow, 84. That's it. I mean, I didn't think it was that bad. I liked it. I liked that one. I don't know why that one got so few. But let's see. Web fishing, Animal Well, Nine Souls. It's a pretty decent spread. It's not too big. This one's huge. Fursuit, nothing. And in music. Music is not a very popular category. In fact, I even think it's probably one of the worst categories. .808 compact didn't do too. I'm gonna guess. Is that the one by Patricia? No, that's the one by David. David kind of, I think, had his vote split for him a little bit. I didn't listen to 808 compact, but the fact that it got like that view kind of makes me a little nervous to listen to it later. It's like 6, 6, and 9. Not nice. The bicycle didn't do too bad at all. But yeah, so like the fursuiting one, it's definitely worth its own video at some point, probably before the end of the year at some point. There's definitely if I think if fursuit's going to continue to be a category here, it's definitely needs to be a little bit more discussed. In the more things, I would have to probably write an article about it. I think the issue with it currently is quite simply it's a problem of knowledge. Because I'm a furry nerd. Like I've got a decent bit of knowledge in my head about the fandom and like the different writers and different things on it. No, I'm not perfect, obviously, and discovering new things is always a joy and it's part of life. But it's like if we're talking about like, oh, we're gonna have like this fursuit thing for the year, like we're gonna have a contest of fursuits and figuring out what fursuits like we want to give things to. The problem is that, I mean, we can go over it more in detail in another video because this has gone on pretty long already, but there's no way to determine when a fursuit comes out for the year other than the creator of the fursuit themselves. So it leads to that fursuiters have to A, promote themselves, and B, promote themselves in such a way where people have a directory of this is a fursuit that was made in the year 2024, and here's the fursuit creators that made these fursuits, which might be a personal thing, and like maybe the fursuit owner doesn't want to have all that information out there, and because afraid about them personally being involved and stuff like that. But in the long of the short is like for animal costumes, like people don't know when they were made. Like if I go to a furry con with my fursuit, like no one's gonna go like, oh, how like that one looks like a 2013 costume, and they would be right. It's that old. It's 12 years old at this point. It's an old fursuit in its life. It's an old fursuit in its lifespan. So like, but people wouldn't be able to determine that. So like absolutely worthy of its own time and consideration. But as far as like surprises or anything like that, there were a few, I guess. So after I looked at it a little more closely, the gaming winner being a fishing thing with cats was kind of interesting. That is an extremely indie title, you know, in the group. Won the gaming one, and it was interesting that you know, what's happening in the writing space in the Ursa Majors is also interesting, with, you know, old guard names sort of falling down, while, you know, newer names that I haven't heard of, maybe they're not fresh blood, but they are fresh blood as far as the Ursa Majors are concerned, which is always good to see. So as far as it's like, I'm not too disappointed with the results this year. And I hope that you know, continues, and I hope more interest continues to grow, so that we can see more interesting topics, like, and more interesting content that people might not normally focus on. I'm glad that the one I decided to look at, which was the one other nonfiction, the dramatic short works, that I continue to look into those and make articles and talk about those. I think it's really helped out that category a lot. And if you are interested in any one of those categories as a consumer, you know, if you like reading and enjoy reading to the point where it's like it's definitely a hobby of yours, and you're definitely enjoy reading furry content, you know, absolutely, like, get out there, read it, consume it, review it, and talk about it. Right, that's the most important thing you could do, is talk about the content that people had worked hard on, whether it's positive things, critiques, and maybe sometimes negative things. But, you know, people need to talk about the things that they enjoy or love to hate, and that's what keeps creativity going. But hopefully you and thank you for those who voted for me, and thank you to those who voted for my opponents, and I'm glad that the convention history guys won this year's. I joked on on my last stream a little bit. It's not really a joke, actually, but it's sort of a joke in that, like, you know, getting nominated but not winning because I want to draw attention to other people who are more polished and provide good content in the nonfiction space, whether inside of furry or outside of furry, should be my job. And if I'm doing it to the point where people appreciate it, that's great. But if I'm not doing it well enough, then people will use me as a sole arbiter of truth, and that's not how things should be. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of times in nonfiction media, that's what ends up happening. So something I definitely want to avoid. And I'm glad to see it expanding, and I'm glad to see that there's specialists who are appreciated for their work in keeping track of convention history, because I think it's a very important thing to the fandom. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Kick a like, kick a subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. This was a long one, but I think I like talking about the Ursas and, you know, seeing what the fandom enjoys as far as content goes. So we'll see what happens this year, and if there's any new surprises or things that'll come for this year that'll be on the next year's Ursas. So until then, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.